What's wrong with the Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team? All that and more next on Bobcat Breakdown.
Julia, are you ready to play band with us?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Stephen Pappas, and I will be your host tonight. Joining me on the desk are our analysts, Bryan, Schwartz, and Mike Dalton. Boys, how are we doing tonight?
Not too bad, Steve. How are you?
Pretty good. So 2 seniors, 2 experienced, and dare I say, grizzled veterans. I think this should be a good one. So let's get right into it. The Quinnipiac women's soccer team this season came to an end last Thursday as they were defeated at the hands of the in-state and MAAC rival Fairfield by the final of 1-0. Mike, I'll start with you. What was missing? What part of the team did they really truly need to win that game?
They needed pure goal scorers, Steve, and it truly showed. I mean, the Bobcats got shut out only 1-0, so defense played great, but offensively they just could not find that go-to person to put the ball in the back of the net, and they've really been struggling with that the entire year. Kelsey Goldring has had trouble staying healthy. They haven't been without her for a while, and so it's always been a next player up mentality, and there have been players that the Bobcats have looked to score a goal, but just haven't gone through.
You know, Mike, when I look at that game, it's a 1-0 game, right? It was in the rainy conditions. It's a tough game to go into Fairfield and win against another really good team. But exactly like you just said, you need that go-to scorer. We see it with all the best teams on Quinnipiac's campus or around the country. It doesn't matter what sport it is. Each one of those teams has to have their premier scorer, the go-to, the one that can hit the home run, the one that can get the winning goal. And this Quinnipiac women's soccer team just did not have that this year. And you look at the good teams in the MAAC again this year. Monmouth, they have 3 players in the top 10 in goals. Fairfield, they also had 3 players in the top 10 in goals. Quinnipiac's leading goal scorer was Selena Salas, and she just had 6. After her was 4 players with 3. So you don't have anybody that's even at the top of the conference in goals for Quinnipiac. And ultimately, I think that's what failed them in the end.
Couldn't agree with you more, Bryan.
So, Bryan, was this the team's ceiling, or did you expect a deeper run?
I don't know if I would say I expected a deeper run, but I would say their ceiling probably would have been a MAAC championship game. I wouldn't say they could win the MAAC championship game, Mike, because of what would be daunting against them in Monmouth, because that Hawks team is so dominant. But when you look at it, this is a team that probably should have beat Fairfield, and they could beat Fairfield. They'd beaten the Stags earlier this year, 3-0. They beat them already in Fairfield, and a 1-0 game. If a few shots go a different way, Quinnipiac could win that.
Yeah, Ryan, I think they also could have made it to the MAAC finals this year. I mean, this senior class, they did make it way back in their freshman year, played Monmouth, lost to them. And Monmouth, I mean, the best way to compare them is they're basically the women's basketball team at Quinnipiac here. I mean, they are just borderline unstoppable. They have won the MAAC championship every single year since you and I have been here. They outscored their opponents 9-0 in the MAAC tournament this year.
It was 6-0 in the championship game.
Exactly. And that was the team that shut out the Bobcats, the Fairfield Stags. And, you know, no beating around the bush. They got the crap kicked out of them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, this Quinnipiac team was not going to be able to beat a team like Monmouth.
No.
Would they have put up a better fight than Fairfield did? Maybe.
Yeah.
But, look, I think they definitely could have beat Fairfield, gotten to that championship game. But to get to that next level of beating a team as good as Monmouth, probably wasn't going to happen, at least this year.
Yeah, I think they would have kept it much closer. I think they would have, it could have only been a 1-goal game with Megan Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, I think ceiling-wise, a MAAC championship appearance, you could say, but probably not a win.
So every year teams go through turnover with graduating seniors. Which graduating player will this team miss the most, Mike?
I'm going to go with a package deal here, Steve. I'm going to go with Kylie Lance and Mackenzie Tibble, the center backs for this team. They have started all 4 years that they have been here, and all of their constant substitutions that Dave Clark had throughout the season. I mean, it was just crazy. It was basically like a winding door at a big building. It was just substitute after substitute after substitute. You'd see several players be subbed in and out 2 or 3 times, like during the second half of a match, which was just unprecedented considering Dave Clark's previous years, where he didn't really like to substitute that much. And the two players that I never, ever saw Dave Clark take out this entire season were those two I just mentioned, Lance and Tibble.
For me, when I look at, I mean, I can't argue really against that, but when I look at it, you look at the game against Fairfield. Who was the person that scored for the Stags that game? Gabby Diodati. She had the goal, right? Mm-hmm. She was the MAAC leader in assists. Who was Quinnipiac's leader in assists? That was Allie Grunstein, and she was right behind Diodati. She had 8 in total in the season. For the Bobcats, you need to have someone, I mean, for any team, any women's soccer team, you need to have someone that's going to be able to set up the scores. And like we just talked about, they don't have a premier goal scorer, or don't have one yet. But you need someone that's going to be able to set that player up. And coming into next year, they're going in with a pretty unexperienced team in that light, I think we could say. And Grunstein did that this year. She was a big key to their offense and setting up their scoring. And they're going to really miss that next year.
You do bring a good point, Brian, but I'll say this. Kelsey Goldring was that other wing that they had that could really fly down the sidelines, and she struggled with injuries this year. And she's a redshirt junior this year. So she could definitely be back next season. I mean, whether she is up to her discretion or not with the injury that she sustained. But I think that the reason why Grunstein had that one of her best years here was because of that. There was really no one else to go to.
Right.
And I think that, when I look at it, Lance and Tibble, they were just inseparable. And, that's why this Bobcat team had such a great defense. And to be honest, I think that's why Megan Phillips had such a good rookie season, was because she didn't really have to deal with much in the box. And she didn't really have to make too many saves either because of Lance and Tibble.
You bring up Phillips coming into the season, we could have predicted that this question would have been Olivia Mashevsky coming into the year as a senior goalie, and she was the big-time goalie the last few years, and all of a sudden Megan Phillips just takes her job.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure first 3 games, 2 of them were shutouts,
right.
So that pretty much set the bar from there.
All right, guys, so let's stick to the pitch. Well, let's move over to the men's side. Our game of the week is the MAAC semifinal against Iona. Let's keep in mind that the last time the Quinnipiac men's soccer team lost came back on October 26th against these same Gales. Every team has their strengths and their weaknesses. Brian, I'll start with you. What do these two teams do well?
Well, for Quinnipiac, I want to start off with the experience that this Bobcats team has and the fact that they've been there before. They have players like Eamon Whalen, Jared Mazzola, who have played well in the spotlight. And I think that's super important when you're hosting a MAAC semifinal game like this. This is a huge game for the Bobcats program as a whole because you have someone like Eamon Whalen who is leaving after this year. This could be that window. I mean, I know they have a very young team too to go along with Whalen, but that window is closing with that premier scorer. Will they have another premier scorer after this? Probably someone will emerge, but someone like Whalen doesn't come around too often, and this is that window, and Quinnipiac can use that experience to try to get a win here.
Yeah, definitely, Brian. I think that their biggest strength is their young talent. Tomas Svekula, second on the team in goals with 6. 3 of those game-winning goals. He has that clutch factor already. 1 MAAC Rookie of the Year this season. Last player to do that, Eamon Whalen, like you just mentioned. Braga Asen led the team in assists with 6. And he's only a freshman too. And then the other freshman, Henry Weigand, second on the team in minutes behind Jared Mazzola, which I found very impressive because given that this team has had some very established backs such as Connor McCoy, Yeppe Hare, that to me really stuck out. It's one of those stats that you don't really think much of it, but then when you look at him out on the pitch, there's a reason why he started every single match this year. Only freshman to do so, and just one of 2 players in their respective all-MAAC teams to be voted unanimously, which I think is especially impressive, considering that there were so many good players this year all across the MAAC.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with that at all. I think, for me, Iona's got to make sure that they contain Eamon Whalen. I think that's the key. You talked about Iona. You're going to talk about Iona's defense.
Yep.
And defensively, that's the guy you got to contain. That's the one that Quinnipiac's going to look to him to put the ball in the back of the net, and Iona's got to be able to contain that.
Definitely.
So the saying goes, big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. Brian, who do you have your eye on going into Thursday?
Well, I just talked about Eamon Whalen, Steve, and I'm going to go to the other side for this one. Mauro Bravo is the Iona leading scorer, and he's a player to watch for Quinnipiac as well as Iona. Iona needs him to be able to contribute in this game. He needs to be a big piece. For Quinnipiac, they need to be able to stop him, and that goes with that man right there, Jared Mazzola. He was all MAAC postseason team last year, and he needs another big game coming up.
Yeah, last season, I think we can definitely say that the MAAC semifinals against Marist was really the coming out party for Jared Mazzola. Even though he gave up 3 goals in that match, he played unbelievably. I mean, what was it, 8-7 in penalty kicks? It was just unreal. I mean, even people like us that were covering the game were just going crazy afterwards because we just couldn't believe that we had just witnessed something of that magnitude at such high stakes, and we were right there to cover it. It was just especially impressive. So Iona, defensively, you're right, Brian, I am going to talk about them. Malcolm Moreno, all MAAC first team, MAAC Defensive Player of the Year. So he is going to be focusing on Eamon Whalen in particular. And I think him, along with Nacho Sanchez, the freshman, did a particularly good job of shutting out Whalen in the first game back on October 26th, and they're going to be focusing on the same thing. However, for my player to watch on the Quinnipiac end is, like you said, Jared Mazzola, coming out party last season in the MAAC semifinals. But also, I would look out for Thomas Svekula for the Bobcats offensively because he has been that very good supporting cast. He's basically been like the Scottie Pippen to Whalen's Michael Jordan.
Good
Because
analogy. I
know how
like
much you love basketball, so I mean that's a perfect analogy right there.
Scottie Pippen's a very good analogy. So this wouldn't be a debate show without predictions. Brian, what you got for Thursday?
All in on the Bobcats, Steve. I'm going to go Quinnipiac wins it 2-1. I think that the Bobcats are probably the better team. I think that Eamon Whalen wants to take this home in his senior year and compete for that championship, and it's at home, and I think that plays a big part of it too. So give me the Bobcats 2-1.
Yeah, definitely, Brian, and I'm just going to move my notes a little bit this way just so that you're not looking at it. Yeah, because I also have the Bobcats winning 2-1, only in overtime, and I actually have Simon Hillinger scoring the overtime goal. I remember 2 seasons ago in Hillinger's freshman year, he scored a goal in double overtime against Marist. It was in the regular season, but it just shows that he's got that clutch factor, and he's really the captain of this team, whether he wears the thing on his sleeve or not. Right. And so he really, he's what keeps this team, ticking. And I think that he would deserve that overtime winner.
Yeah, he's one of the players we didn't even touch on in the last few minutes.
That's how much depth this team has.
Right, he's a very important piece for this team and could have a really good game.
No better 2 words in the English language than playoffs and overtimes. We've hit our first commercial break of the night, but when we come back, what's up with the Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team's slow start, and will the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team break out of their early season skid? We'll be right back.
Oh, hey, Julia. Are you ready to play band with us? I'm going to play my clarinet.
And Elma's gonna play us drum. Drum loud.
Oh, well, you know what to do, Julia.
Julia knows.
With Julia's autism, loud sounds can be too much.
But she still loves to make music. Play band.
Early screening for autism can make a lifetime of difference. Find out more at screenforautism.org.
There are amazing things to discover in the forest.
Toothless, time to go. What you picking up on, bud?
It's a whole hidden world of wonders. And the perfect place to spend time with family. What better place to let your imagination soar? Experience nature and create a memory you can share. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest or park near you.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. It's been a tough start for the Quinnipiac men's ice hockey season as they come into this week, the last week, winless in their last 4 games, being outscored in that stretch 18-8. This team last year was built around defensive scoring and a successful power play and have gotten neither this year. Mike, what is this team missing from that same team from last year?
Well, Steve, I know you touched upon it last week during neutral zone, but a good special teams. I mean, in order for a team to be special, they need special teams. I mean, there's really no other way to describe it. And so far this season, it's been very disappointing for the Bobcats. They're only 14% on the power play. That is way down compared to last season. They were 26% on the power play, scoring 38 power play goals. Right now, they only have 6 on the season, and they're only 79% on the PK as well, which is not as big of a difference compared to last year's, which was 87%. But still, I mean, I still think that needs improvement. If you're around 80% on the PK, that means you're giving up 1 too many goals or more. And so that's what the Bobcats need to do. And they need to find someone to anchor those special teams. Chase Prisky, I think, we can say how much that Chase Prisky meant to this program, but he really meant to them a lot to them on special teams. He was always out there, whether it was on the PK, on the power play, and he was producing points, whether he was scoring the goal or setting someone up, or if he was just distracting the entire penalty-killing opponent team and having them focus on him, whereas he just passes the puck down low, Bobcats score.
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on just what I was about to say, and that's Chase Prisky. I think I was kind of tossing up between Prisky and Andrew Shortridge, who had an outstanding year last year, but Keith Petruzzelli has the potential to take that role. So I gave Prisky the nod over Shortridge just for this answer because you talk about the penalty kill, and when they're on the power play, they have not been as good this year as they were last year. Their team defense needs to get better. Who's the guy for that? That was Prisky, who really anchored that defense. They need a leader. That's the other thing. You get swept by a team like Arizona State, you have to bounce back. And last weekend, it just didn't work out. You need that leader on a team that's full of underclassmen like they are this year. So I think they're really missing the guy Chase Prisky on the ice and in the locker room.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if a first year or a sophomore even stepped up as far as leadership goes,
right,
because that can really kind of help kickstart a very, very young team. I mean, we got to remember there are 22 players on this roster,
which is
that
absurd.
Are either a first year or a sophomore. I mean, granted, the Bobcats did lose Brogan Rafferty and Andrew Shortridge, who still had 1 year of eligibility left, but still, I mean, that's just 2 players. That can easily be replaced.
Well, and you look at a lot of the first years and the sophomores, there are a lot of them that have played really well. You talk about Ethan Lay or DeYoung, just 2 to name a few of them. There are many.
Bongiovanni.
Right, Bongiovanni. There are many players that have been really good and are going to be really good in the conference as well. So those are players to look at to really take the next step.
So, Bryan, I guess the big question now is this team still worthy of its preseason top 3 ranking in the ECAC Hockey Conference?
Steve, right now, I'm going to say no. And that's right now. I think that can change. We have to see how this young team develops. Can they take that next step like we just talked about? Can a guy like Wyatt Bongiovanni or Ethan Lay or DeYoung lead them to that next spot? Can Keith Petruzzelli put it all together in goal? We don't know that yet. And right now, they haven't been able to. So right now, I'm going to say no. I think Cornell, Clarkson, Harvard are all definitely better than the Bobcats, especially with how they looked the past couple weekends. So right now, I would say no.
Yeah, and the biggest difference to me is when the Bobcats played Harvard this past weekend. Harvard lost a very good defenseman as well, and Adam Fox, who's currently on Steve Pappas' favorite team, the New York Rangers. And they've been doing just fine. I mean, you just saw the graphic. They're undefeated in conference play, whereas the Bobcats have really been struggling to find that same person. We thought Peter DeLiberatore was going to be that guy to step up, but he just hasn't really shown the potential that Chase Prisky really set the bar for, and now it's kind of like the Bobcats are almost scrambling to find that person really fast. One player I will say that has been impressive, though, as on the back lines is Zach Metza. I think he's really shown a lot of potential. He really kind of went under the radar his freshman year because, with guys like Prisky and Deliberatore taking most of the ice, that's been, it was just tough for him to get some playing time. But now he's getting his opportunity and he's taking advantage.
All right, so let's move to the women's side now. 3 winnable games now on tap for the Bobcats against RPI, Union, and St. Lawrence. Mike, is this the weekend they turn their season around?
Steve, as tough as it is to say that the Bobcats can turn their season around, I don't think they will. And here's why. RPI and Union, to me, would have been very, very beatable teams at the beginning of this season. But since the Quinnipiac joined the ECAC Hockey Conference in the 2005-06 season, the Bobcats have never gone winless in their first 5 conference games, and they're 0-4-1 right now. So right now, I really don't think that the Bobcats are going to have what it takes to turn around, because I think that RPI and Union are going to see this, and they're really going to take advantage of it. They are going to smell that blood in the water and attack like a great white shark.
Do I think they're going to turn their season around? I don't know if they're going to turn their season around. Do I think they could win one of these next 2 games? Absolutely. I mean, these are 2 of the teams, just like Quinnipiac, are at the bottom of the ECAC. So, look, Quinnipiac has not played well to date this year. But again, neither has RPI and neither has Union. So these are 2 teams that Quinnipiac really needs to win. These are the 2 teams that you want to play in this conference. So, look, you never know. You never know what's going to happen over the long stretch of the season. Obviously, they still have a tough schedule remaining. We saw it there on the screen a couple minutes ago. But look, can they win a couple games here? Yeah. Will they split this weekend? I think so. I think they'll at least split.
And I think that's a bad thing, though, because these are 2 teams that are combined 1-18.
Right, they should.
That's just not good.
Yeah,
and
you should win.
If you're talking about splitting a series between 2 teams that just are that bad, I don't think that's good at all.
Oh, Quinnipiac's winless in ECAC play too, so they're just as bad as they are.
That is true, but the Bobcats just have been better in the past, whereas these 2 teams, their programs have just been.
But even a team like RPI is also looking at this game as, wow, we could really beat Quinnipiac. So I think Quinnipiac's really got to come on strong, and they're going to win one of these next 2 games.
So hot topics on the ice. Now let's move to the hardwood as the Quinnipiac women's basketball team will take on Yale in New Haven tomorrow after having 8 days off following their opening night loss to Drexel. Bryan, looking back on their game 8 days ago, what do you figure out about this team after their loss to Drexel?
Well, looking at that game against Drexel, it was tough to look at because that Drexel team is really good. They had a bunch of returning players, and Quinnipiac struggled a little bit. Look, it's a brand new team. The 5 starters graduated. We talk about that ad nauseum. I think you really got to look at this freshman class. So Jada Bonner, Curtiera Haywood, Kat Almeida, and Michaela Morris. The four first years on this team, they really have to step it up. They're going to play a lot, and we're going to see that again tomorrow against Yale.
Yeah, one thing I noticed was that this Bobcat team didn't really play with a lot of discipline. They got into foul trouble real early. Paige Warfel talked about it post-game. I know you were there. And that meant that they couldn't really play that lockdown defense that they really wanted to, because then those 50-50 calls that, yeah, you could call them, yeah, you couldn't, they just couldn't afford to take those risks. And one thing I did notice that was good, though, they were spreading the ball around really well. 4 players reached double digits in points. They didn't do well from 3-point range, 4 for 15, but I think they can certainly fix that.
All right, let's take a break. Our final one of the night. We'll be right back to give you our final roars.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average 4-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
patriotism. It inspires passionate debate, and it's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love, love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Welcome back. We've reached the end of our show, but not without our final roars, and we'll start with Mike Dalton.
Only 3 regular season games left for the Quinnipiac volleyball team. Only 6 teams make the playoffs, and the Bobcats are 6th in the MAAC standings, with the Siena Saints trailing the Bobcats by 2 games. But don't let that game difference fool you, as the Bobcats have already lost to 2 of the 3 remaining teams they play, the Saints being one of them. Tomorrow, the Bobcats will host the Saints just a few hundred yards away from this very spot at Lender Court. If the Bobcats win, they're almost guaranteed that 6th and final spot in the playoffs. But if the Saints go marching home with a W, now the chances of the Bobcats making the playoffs could be in jeopardy. Last year, the Bobcats didn't get off to a great start in conference play, similar to this season. However, they showed the conference what kind of team they were when they finished the regular season strong, winning 2 of their final 3 games. The Bobcats used that momentum to beat Niagara in the first round of the MAAC tournament, where they fell to the Fairfield Stags. So if the Bobcats want to get further than they did in last year's MAAC tournament, they need to beat the Saints in their final home game and finish strong.
Finally, Quinnipiac men's basketball will play an actual regular season game Wednesday night against Brown. It's the start of an extremely important year for the Bobcats, and especially Baker Dunleavy. Year 1 was cool, preseason choice for last place in the conference and surprising everyone all the way to the MAAC semifinals. Year 2 had its ups and downs, injuries throughout the year, the absurd stat lines of Cam Young, and a disappointing MAAC quarterfinal loss. It's now year 3. The grace period is officially over, and it's got to be make a run at the conference title or bust. That's it this year. The pieces are in place: a strong point guard that can run the offense, an excellent shooter at the forward spot, physicality and size down in the paint, an experienced former Big Ten player, and a young core that's got its feet wet last year, ready to go all in for this season. Can they do it? Absolutely. But it's a long season, and you never know what will happen. It's a big year for Baker Dunleavy. It's a big year for the Bobcats. Winning basketball should be back in Hamden this year, and it all starts Wednesday against Brown.
Going down the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey schedule, you'll see a record of 4-5-2 with a conference record of 0-4-1. Not really something you'd bat your eye at first glance, but going through some of the games, it's clear the Bobcats have been in every single game that they've played. A 1-0 loss to the number 3 overall team in the country in Cornell, and a 4-2 loss to number 5 Princeton on the road as well. Quinnipiac's young talent has them on the edge to get back to the teams of the past. But for Quinnipiac fans in and around campus, the big question is when. When will Cass Turner's team take the next step forward and back into the spotlight? A program that has hosted the Frozen Four twice, but has never participated in one, could be primed for an explosion in the years to come. But it all has to start somewhere, and why not here, and why not now? That'll do it for the evening. Thanks for taking part out of your Tuesday night to tune in. Check out more of our content at Q30.com, or better yet, follow us on Twitter for all of your Quinnipiac sports updates at Q30 Sports for exclusive producers, or for our executive producers, Connor Olathorn and Patrick Flatley, associate producers Ryan Flaherty and Roberto Casillas, our analysts for tonight, Bryan Schwartz and Mike Dalton. I'm Stephen Pappas saying good night from Hamden.